So a couple weeks ago, I made this video about all the leaked DLC characters for the Avengers game because when beta for this game came out on PC, that's when data miners were able to really start digging and find out all this information. So I did that video about all the DLC characters, and I'll leave that link down in the description below if you haven't seen it yet. But it turns out that wasn't the only part on this Reddit post from Reddit that actually revealed these characters, because apparently the data miners also found some non-playable characters, but just characters that will be in the game, which will be really cool to see. And these are specifically villains, at least for the most part. So this is really cool because me personally, I've always really loved the villains, and if you don't have a good villain of a story, then it's not really that good. And MODOK, I'm really excited to be seeing MODOK in this game, but we know we're going to be having side stories for each of the characters. We know each of the DLC characters is going to have their own side story when they're introduced, so you gotta have some other villains in here other than MODOK and AIM, and from what we can tell from this data leak thing, is pretty cool. So I found about 4 of them here. So we're just gonna go over them and see what we can figure out here. So the first one is Scientist Supreme, but to be specific, the actual data leak says Monica. So I'm not completely sure if that means specifically Scientist Supreme, but I'm assuming it does because in the comics there's a version of the Scientist Supreme and her first name is Monica. So that could be what they're referring to here, or it could be someone else. But if it is Scientist Supreme, it just makes so much sense because AIM and MODOK are the main villains of the movie, and Scientist Supreme is the leader of AIM, but one step below MODOK. So it makes complete and total sense that Scientist Supreme will be involved in the story somehow, whether that's in a side story, in the main story, maybe it's just a cameo or something. But it just does make so much sense for this character to be involved in this story. Now moving on to definitely one I wasn't expecting, and that is Deathlok. Now I don't really know that much about this character. I think he's not a full-on villain from what I can tell. But we could just see an Avengers member go up against him sometime. Yeah, maybe he looks like maybe he could go up against Hawkeye. Maybe Hawkeye's DLC story is him going up against Deathlok, or maybe it'll be some other character going up against him, but I just feel like he'll be one of those side stories, and he won't be involved in the actual main story itself. But he is definitely a cool looking character that I'm excited to be seeing in this game. But now let's get into the characters that I'm even more excited for, like the Red Hulk. Now, this is something that we've pretty much been wanting, since pretty much the beginning of this game, because it'd be so simple to do, because literally you just take the Hulk, make him red, and then make him a little angrier and kind of evil. It's not that hard to do, plus, it's not like we're gonna get a Hulk game anytime soon, so really, Red Hulk does fit in pretty well with this game, and because he is more of an Avengers villain, even though he is mostly a Hulk villain, we're not getting a Hulk game, so he fits in here as an Avengers villain. So this could just be a side story. Like I said before, maybe he could be the main villain for She-Hulk's side story when she's introduced. I think that'd be really cool. Or since he isn't listed as a playable character, and all these are just listed as characters that are somehow involved in the game, maybe he's not even going to be a separate character, because there were rumors that with War Machine that we're getting for the game, he won't be a separate character, and that he could possibly be just a suit of armor for Iron Man, which would really suck, but at the same time it does make sense, because they are their overall design is pretty similar, they're just different colors. And there's the same thing with Red Hulk and Hulk, so you could literally just take the Hulk, give him a new skin that turns him into Red Hulk, and then you're still technically playing as Red Hulk. Even though it's the same character as Hulk, you're still playing as Red Hulk. So this could possibly be a playable character, which would be really cool. So yeah, I'm hoping we see that happen, although he may just be a villain that we go up against and face in one of the side stories, like I said before. But now on to the final villain, and that is Ultron. Now this is a bit of a surprising one, because if Ultron shows up in Avengers game, you'd think he'd be like the main villain or something, and he's not usually like the side villain, especially to someone like MODOK. But I did hear some people saying that if Ultron's in this game, then they want it to just be like this big reveal that Ultron is actually the real main villain of the game, which obviously would be cool, but at the same time, I don't want them to take the spotlight away from MODOK, because this is like the first time we're seeing MODOK in serious form, because pretty much other than this, we've seen him in cartoons, and of course he's all silly in that stuff. And then in the comics, he's a bit more serious, but still not completely. But in this game, this is our first look at MODOK in this new form, and for a lot of people, it will be their introduction to this character. And if we see him in the MCU down the line, we want people to take him seriously and, you know, maybe be scared of him. So if you bring in Ultron here and just make him like more powerful and everything, then that just, you know, brings down the spotlight on MODOK, which I wouldn't really like. So I'm hoping that Ultron, if he is in this game, that he'll just be like some sort of, you know, side story, whether that be for a specific character or just an in general Avengers side story. So I don't think he'll be involved in the actual main story at all, unless I could see it possibly being set up for a future game, because with the Marvel Spider-Man PS4 game, we did get, I think you could consider it like a post-credit scene type thing to set up for the second game, and there's no doubt that they're going to do some setup here in this game for a future sequel, and this would be the perfect opportunity because Ultron is a big Avengers villain, so do some sort of post-credit scene, maybe with Hank Pym inventing or creating this robot, and then, you know, the last words of the game, of that scene could be like, and I'll call him Ultron, or, you know, something like that. So I don't know, that's what I could see this character being used for in the game, but like I said, I just don't want him to be too overpowering and just, you know, shadowing over MODOK. So I hope to see him, but I hope it's not in too big of a capacity. But anyways, guys, these are the rumored / data leaked villains for this game. It's really interesting to think about how each of these characters are going to be involved, because, like I said, it's not really, in the actual data leak, it's not really listed as anything specific, like whether they're playable, or they're just NPCs, or characters you're going to fight, or skins. So it's just that they're in the game. Now, of course, do take this with a grain of salt, because it is just someone on Reddit saying that they they did a data leak and all that stuff. So there's really no way to tell how reliable this is, but I guess we'll just have to really wait and see when the actual game comes out next week, I believe. So yeah, this is going to be fun. I hope all these characters are in the game and more, because I love the villains. But anyways, guys, let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about these characters and villains being in the Marvel's Avengers game? And what other characters would you like to see a part of this game as well? So thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit that subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.